Hello, everyone, and a very warm good evening to all of you. Welcome to Microsoft Fabric Cohort. It is a hands on learning experience designed for developers, data engineers, and IT professionals eager to explore Microsoft Fabric, a unified platform for analytics, data integration, and your AI powered insights. Today, we are delighted to welcome Satyam Gupta sir, who is a data engineer at Microsoft for his expert session on data engineering and processing in Fabric. The stage is all yours, sir, now.
Hey, hi. Thank you, Sudhanshu. Hi, everybody. So this is Satyam here. So I'm currently a data engineer at Microsoft. So today we're basically going to, I think you have already attended the session on Fabric, which gives us, brief idea about the introduction of the Fabric and how it works. And today we are going to deep dive and we are going to understand like how data engineering, in terms of data engineering, how Fabric can be useful and what are different data components that can be used there. Okay, so I'll just quickly start with my slide. Uh, Sudhanshu, can you start with my slide? Yeah, thank you. So, our topic is starting with data engineering and processing in Fabric. So, today I'm going to, so this is how it's going to work. Okay, I'm going to first give you an overview of Fabric and how it works and why data engineering is important. Okay, and then we are going to deep and I will have some demo for you, so that demo will also give you some insight like how different services are, how different components are basically connected to each other. Okay, so let's go ahead. This will be the agenda. So we'll start with the introduction, then we'll go ahead with data pipeline, then we have data flow gen 2, lakehouse, warehouse, KQL, and notebooks. Okay, so we will first begin with the introduction to data engineering, and then we will go in depth into data pipeline, data gen 2, lakehouse architecture, and warehouses. We'll also cover KQL a little bit, because this is just a basic idea I will give. We will have a detailed session on KQL real time data uh, next, which is on 16th, I guess. And then we'll cover notebooks. And then at the end, I will also have a demo for you. So in between, I will just show you what and all each components look like by logging into the Fabric. So that way you will have some familiarity how it's working. Okay. So let's go ahead. So why, first of all, like why data engineering is important right now and why it is needed for modern companies, right? So first is effective data management is very much important, because when you are that big of a company, you have to deal with data in terms of there is a lot of data coming in. And if, as long as you are just storing the data and not making any insight on top of that, data storage is just going to a waste. Okay, so as a company, what you should do, look forward to do, is like whatever the data that you have to kind of derive some business insight on top of that. That way you'll be able to understand your customers or your business users, to kind of see where the product is going, and that way you will able to optimize and basically service is much better way. Okay, so that way you'll be able to see the trends. You will also be able to understand with the data like how your product is performing, what and all improvement that needs to be made. So that is very much important. Okay, and data engineering is very pivotal part. Okay, because after data engineering come data analysis, data science. So if data engineering person does a good job of cleaning the data, as well as bringing data from various different data sources, that way you will have a very clean data as a data analyst and data science. That way they'll be able to make quick decisions and able to present that into a dashboard, or maybe build models on top of that. Okay, so that is very much important. So in data engineering we have like real time data analytics. So if you are dealing with real time data, that can also be integrated with Fabric. And if you have a very streamlined data engineering processes, right, that gives you a very competitive advantage. So if you are a company where your data is very line stream, then you have a data engineering working full time, where it collects data from every single places and put it into a place where your data science and data analyst team can kind of make predictions on top of that, and kind of look at the future, look at the past patterns, and then basically put it into a future. That will give you a much better idea, because that way that will give you a competitive edge in other companies, because if they might not be doing it, that way you will have some advantage over them. Going forward, so introduction to Fabric. So Microsoft Fabric ecosystem encompasses a suite of tools and services designed for data engineering and processing. It integrates various functionality that streamlines data workflows and enhances productivity. So we have like different like data engineering tools, such as we have data pipelines, we have data flows gen 2, then we have lake house, we have one lake. So why it is called a one integrated system or a unified system? Because earlier every single thing you used to have different tools. So in Microsoft, if you have Azure Data Factory for ETL processes, then we have Databricks notebook activity if you want to process the data in some way or another, right? So that way you have like a different tools, and we have ADLS Gen 2, right? So why it is called unified? Because Fabric has integrated every single thing that you need for your data engineering, for your data analysis, as well as your data science, everything into a one single application that is deployed over the web. So you can just simply sign up, and you don't have to play around different components. You can just go to the web, and you can just simply see everything. Okay, these are the components that I want to use, and you can use those components and create a whole lot of pipelines, and maybe you create a data flow, or maybe you create a notebook activity. Everything you can do in the fabric itself. And that will basically, you don't have to integrate different parts. It is just a one big component that you can use, and it's a ready-made tool that you can just provision and kind of start using for your data engineering or data analysis or data science needs. Okay, going forward, first we will cover data pipeline. So what is data pipeline? So data pipeline is one of the very key component of Fabric ecosystem. It enables organization to kind of orchestrate data. So it is kind of a ETL tool. So I hope you know what is a full form of ETL, which is extract, transform, and load. So is basically helps you move data from various different data sources to a one single place. Because when you're working in an environment where your data is scattered across multiple data centers, or multiple storage accounts, or multiple databases, you have to make sure that you get the data into a one single place, where data science people can work on them, data analysis people can work on them, and then that data can be used for also Power BI needs, and you can build reports on top of that. So that will basically a very good way to kind of basically you'll be able to integrate the data. So you can create data pipelines in Fabric, where you can just integrate data from very different data sources, and you can transform the data as well as move the data from that X point, X source, to the Fabric. Okay, it's basically a cloud based data integration service. So it also helps you, like you can schedule your workload. So if you want to run it every single hour or one time in a day, you can schedule that. And it also connects to various different data sources, and it has a vast amount of connectors. So every single data source, like you have Oracle, we have SQL Server, we have MySQL, PostgreSQL, and from wherever you want the data, it will basically be able to integrate the data from there, and you will be able to create the pipelines in Fabric to bring data from multiple different data sources. It also have a monitoring capability, so you can also monitor your workload, and you kind of see, okay, how it is working. Is there any issue with the workload? Then you can kind of see and check that out. Okay, going forward, so as I already told, it is used for ETL processes, and use cases are data migration. So ETL, if you are moving the data, from multiple different data sources, that is again a ETL process. And for data migration also, let's say you have a data somewhere else in your databases, and you want to kind of move everything here to the Fabric, then you can use data pipelines here in Fabric to kind of use the tool to kind of migrate every single data that you have there to your Fabric account. Okay, so now I will just share my screen and give you a little bit idea on the, one second, data pipeline. Okay, is my screen visible, Sudhanshu?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, this is the Fabric workspace. Okay, this is how you log in. You go to app.fabric.microsoft.com. At the end, I will also tell you like how to create a demo account so you can get started. And I will also give you an idea like where to get started. Like if you want to do some certifications or everything, then you can also get started there as well. Okay. So this is the workspace. So I have, if I go to, this is the workspace that I created for you. This is a demo workspace. So if I go click a new item and I go to pipelines, let me check that. Let me, yeah, data pipeline we have. Let's create data pipeline 2. One demo I've already created. So here. So this is the pipeline, what it looks like. So there is a very much activities or connectors that you can use. Okay, so you want to copy data, that you can copy data from multiple different data sources. So if I select this, then I can have so many different sources. So if I look at more and see from wherever I can put the data. So if you look at it, there are so many connectors. So you can get the data from Teradata, Amazon, MySQL database, PostgreSQL, Snowflake, SFTP server, Oracle, Azure Blob, Postgre, MongoDB. So there are so many connectors, and it covers a very large, vast amount of connectors here that you can use to kind of bring the data over to your Fabric. Okay, so copy data is one of the activities. So in pipelines we have different activity which does the different things. So if I look over activities, let me go ahead. So these are the different activities. We can copy data. So copy data basically copies data from one source to another. It doesn't change anything. It you just copies the data as it is, as you want to. Data flow is one of the components which I will come to later on. Then we have delete data. If you want to look up data, is basically if you want to look up some certain values and you want to use as a variable, then you can use this. Then we have conditions also. So whatever, let's say you look up, if the value or if the count of the table is more than 0, then only copy the data. Then you can do that with the lookup and if condition, sorry. So that way you will also have condition. Then we have filters. You can also filter the data, set a variable. You can also, so it's in pipelines also. If you have a pipeline altogether, then you can invoke a pipeline into the pipeline. So it's like a hierarchical way also you can do. And then you can integrate Databricks notebook activities, Azure Databricks, okay, and other things like notebook activities, script, KQL, stored procedure, everything you can integrate here. These are the different activities which you can use inside the pipeline. Okay, I hope that is clear. And pipeline, if you look at, it can also be parameterized. So there are parameters here. So parameters, like if you set some parameters here and you set a default value, but when you run this pipeline, you can give dynamic values. So if you want to create a one pipeline and you want to make sure that that pipeline runs for every single table, let's say for single source you want to integrate multiple tables, okay, so you can use this to kind of have a parameterized way where you can give the values here. And if you go into the source and you can basically integrate this as a table, you can integrate as a dynamic content and you can use that parameter here. So that way the whole pipeline will become dynamic. You don't have to make changes. You can just send the parameters while running the pipeline, and it will automatically make sure that that pipeline is running for that table, and it will be very much dynamic. Okay, so I will now delete this and go back to my presentation. So Danshu, can we go back to the presentation, please? Okay, thank you. So now coming back to data flow Gen 2. So data flow is basically like a in ETL tool I told about extract, transform, and load. So the second part is transform, right? So in data pipeline, you can use multiple activities, as I said, and one of the activities was a data flow Gen 2. So data flow Gen 2 introduces like advanced capabilities for data transformation and integration within the Fabric ecosystem. So it enhances the way data is processed and provide a better performance. So data gen 2 is like a no code kind of a way where you can kind of if you have used Power BI, then there's a called something called Power Query, right? So it's something that sort. So you, when you will open it, you will able to make certain changes to the data. You want to rename the column. You want to like separate the column basis of some condition. You want to filter the data. You can do every single thing in data flow gen 2, and you don't have to specifically write any code. So it's kind of like a no code way where you can transform the data basis of your need, and you can call data flow gen 2 inside your Fabric itself, inside your data pipeline itself. So you can define everything there and it will automatically transform the data the way you want once you define in data flow, and you can call the data flow activity inside your data pipeline. So data flow is like a evolution of the original data flow that enables users to create complex data transformation. So it's like a version 2 of data flow, and it also brings like a enhanced performance, better integration with other Fabric components, and also improves scalability along organization to process large data sets. So it is basically supported, like if you are dealing with very large amount of data which you want to kind of integrate with data flow, you can also do that, which also supports seamless data integration for large data as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and understand one lake. Okay, so one lake is one of the main components of Fabric. Okay, so think of one lake is like a, how do I define it, like a file system. So you have a file system in your PC, right? So if you go to drive D, right, you have a folder system there, and each folder basically gives you an idea. Okay, that this folder holds this value and this folder has this, like, okay. So one lake is like this, it created on a tenant level. So whenever it automatically created, so whenever you are storing data into a warehouse or a lake house anywhere in Fabric, that will be stored inside a one lake. So let me give you an idea of one lake. Let me, 1 second. Okay. So it enhances collaboration, and it is kind of like a centralized way where if you are working in an organization, right, every single data for a whole organization can be placed into a one single folder, and you can go to that folder and see everything. Okay, this is the data that we hold under this workspace, this data holds. Okay, so it will have a, like inside one lake it will have folder structure like a workspace folder structure. Then inside workspace you will have different folders for warehouses, and we have different folder for lake houses, everything. So that sort of way. So this is one lake, and the subset of one lake is one lake house and warehouses. Okay, then we'll go ahead with lake house. Okay, give me a second. So lakehouse is basically an architecture that combine the best features of data lakes and data warehouses, enabling organization to store and analyze large volume of structured and unstructured data very efficiently. So this is generally used for structured and both unstructured data. So if you want to use like a big data and you want to store it, lakehouse is the best way to store that data into a Parquet format file, which is much more efficient and it is much more compressed as well. Okay. Utilizing a lakehouse like very offers benefits such as reduced data redundancy, improved scalability, enhanced analytics and capabilities. So this is what the lakehouse is. Coming to the warehouses, so as I said, a lakehouse is very good for structured and unstructured data and very big data. If you want to store it in a Parquet format, then you can use this. But warehouse is basically like a data management kind of a tool. So traditional warehouses basically doesn't support much unstructured data. So Warehouse component plays like a critical role in data management, serving as a backbone of storing and retrieving data efficiently. Understanding its feature is essential for effective data analysis. So if you want to store data into form of a tables and column format, right, then you can use data warehouse in Fabric to kind of store data. And it's like a central databases where everything will come together in a warehouse. You can get multiple tables, define relationship in them, and that will be used for reporting as well. So modern data warehouse differ from traditional one is that they are architecture wise much better. They are scalable and they can be scaled very easily, and they are designed in such a way they can handle a large volume of data. So basis of your need, if you want to go for unstructured data, then you can obviously go for lakehouse, right? But if you want to go for structured data, then you can use like data warehouse where you can use store the data in the form of tables and everything. Okay, so currently I'm telling you the definition and everything. We will go into a Fabric later on, and I will show every single thing there. That will give you a much more clarity on how it looks like and how you can create warehouses as well as the lake house on top of your Fabric account. Okay, so as I already told, different between modern and traditional warehouses, like architecture wise they are better. Scalability, they can handle a very scaled data and they can be scaled very easily. Okay. So some of the optimizing techniques in warehouses, I have just mentioning it. So if you are a data engineer and you want to optimize your workload, first is partition. So when you are dealing with very huge data, you have to make sure that you partition the data in a much better way, because if you don't partition the data, then it takes long time for, if you are running any code, that it takes a very long time to kind of retrieve the data. So that way that will slow down your performance. So always make sure you partition the data. All the columns which are important or kind of like a primary key, make sure they are indexed so that the retrieval process become much more faster. And you also use materialized views, which basically have the physical data in place in the storage account. That way you'll be able to use them as well. Okay, so KQL database, will not go deep dive into KQL because we already have a session planned for streaming data. So we'll just brush up a bit on KQL. So KQL is designed for real-time analytics, providing organizations with the ability to analyze data as it arrives. It plays a very vital role in enabling instantaneous decision making. Okay, so KQL is the full form is like Custo Query Language, which is database is optimized for querying large data set real time. Okay, so if you want to deal with real time data, then you also have notebooks, but KQL is one of the component that is specifically designed for optimizing, or basically designed for real time data analytics. So that way you'll be able to kind of get the data, analyze it, and kind of get instantaneous decisions on what the data is coming back to you. Okay, one of the example of real time data is like fraud detection. So if you are using credit cards, right, you want to make sure that whenever you are making the payment, it makes sure that transaction is fraud or not. So that way it has to instantaneously decide, right? So that can be used here as well. Coming back, which is last notebook activity. So as I told, in Dataflow Gen 2, like it can be used for uh, how do I suffice it, like for data transformation, right? But if you don't want to go with no code tools or a no code way of transforming your data, and your requirement is much more difficult, or I would say complex, then you can use notebook activity. Notebook activity, you can easily be able to get the data into notebook activity, and then you can use Python code. So it is kind of an interactive document that combine code, visualization, narrative, and text. Okay, so it can be used for cleaning, transformation, analysis, and they can also use real-time data in notebooks. And there you can also code in like Python, PySpark, and SQL. You can also use SQL. So you have a vast amount of languages that you can code on. And since it's built on Spark engine, I mean, it is much more efficient, and it basically process data in much more efficient and right fashion. Okay, so that's a bit about notebooks. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and give you a brief idea about every single thing that we discussed here. Okay, so let me share my screen again. Sudhanshu, let me know if my screen is visible. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So we have already looked at pipelines. Let's look at data flow. So this is the data flow which I created. Okay, so let it open. So this is how it works. Okay, very simple. First of all, you have to come here and get data from various different data sources. So as I have said, like we have so many different connectors that we can use to get the data here. Okay, so I have used one of the, so I have used SQL Server here, which I have created for my demo purposes, and that SQL servers I'm basically getting connected to here. So this is the table which I kind of loaded from SQL Server. So what I've done is, like, if you look at your right, okay, we have source and then navigation. Basically we are navigating to right table, and then we have a renamed. So if you look at it rename, if I go back to imported, right, let's look at. So this is also one of the features in data flow, right? You can see all the steps, and when you click on it, you can see what was the data set before you made any changes. Okay, so if you look at here, the column names are employee ID, first name, last name, email, right? But what made changes I made, if I click on it, you see that first name is now changed. It's first underscore name, right? So you can make changes like this. So if I right click here, see, so many options you have. You can remove the column, you can add another column, and you can remove duplicates, you can remove error, you can split column basis of some conditions, delimiter positions, errors, everything you can do. You can group by also, so that's way you can basically be able to transform the data. And once the transformation is done, then you can put the data into a lake house or a warehouse, whichever way you want to put it. Okay, so going back, let me close that. Yeah, so let me show you warehouse and then quickly move on to lake house. Okay, so this is warehouse. If you look over here, warehouse is like a, if you have used like a databases, right? So it's kind of, it will look like this only. So you will have tables, views, functions, stored procedure here, and then you will have queries and everything. Okay, so if you look at it, this is the table which I've created. So if I click over here, so if you go into tables, you click on it here, then the SQL query will run and it will automatically fetch you some data, whatever data you want to look at. So give it a second. So yeah, this will give you a brief idea. Okay, there are 1,000 rows and this is how data looks like. You can also open a query over here. You can write select star from or delete table, or same six traditional SQL thing that you do, you can do over here. Okay, so let me just show you selects from tbo dot. So if I run this, it will just give you an idea. You can also use filters over here. You can just basically analyze the data, right? So this is the warehouse. This is how the warehouse looks like. Now coming back to the lake house. So this is the raw lake house. So if you look at here, the log in the lake houses, the data is kind of stored in the form of, one second. Okay. So data is stored in the form of files. So you can see I have imported this employee file, this employee REC file. So you can see here. So you can also preview the data here, but they are in the form of a file. So if I open one lake, as I said, the one lake is kind of like a whole file system where everything gets stored, right? So if you look at one lake here, then you can simply see, right? If you look at the see my all the workspaces are here. If I go to demo workspaces, then I can minimize that. Yeah. If I look at a demo workspace, see everything comes over here. We have a gold warehouse, then we have a lake house, silver, raw, silver. That's how it's kind of defined. So if I go into raw, and if I look at files, if I look at raw data, no, yeah, that comes. See, now all the files I can see over here, and these are into Parquet formats. Okay, so this is how the lake house, one lake looks like, and this is inside the lake house. Okay, now coming back, and this is what lake house looks like. So this is, I have shown all the components, so I will give you bit about what demo I have created. So general use of Fabric is what, like you will want to fetch the data from different sources, right? And once you have fetched the data, you will want to first copy the raw data as like. So let me open a notepad, sorry. Okay, so first you will put the data from any source. Okay, so you will get the data from any source. You will put the data from source, and then you will go there and put it into a raw layer. Okay, that's how it is defined in data engineering. It's like you put the data in raw layer, you don't make any changes to it. You come in here, and after raw, there is a silver layer. So you put the data into a silver layer by making some changes to it. Okay, and then at the end, there is a gold layer. That gold layer is basically generally used for reporting purposes. We also have a bronze layer in between, but I am just choosing to use silver and gold. So we also have a gold layer here. So gold layer is generally used for reporting purposes, where you have a final data with like group by data. It doesn't have so many columns, and the group by data is there, which is the data volume is less, and it can be integrated into a Power BI report, and you can basically create reporting on top of that. Okay, so that reduces a number of rows of data as well. Okay, so that's how this works: raw layer, silver layer, and gold layers. Okay, so what I've created the demo is, first I will basically get the data from my SQL server to raw layer using pipeline activity, copy activity. Then the data will be then using data flow, I will put it into silver layer. Once the data is put into silver layer, then I will use notebook activity to process the data, and that notebook activity will put the data into a gold layer. So that's the demo that I've created. Let me get started with that. So first is the copy activity. So copy job one. If you look at it, this is how I have created this. Sorry. So first of all, let me just start how to create it. Like you click new item here and you a copy job. Okay, once you do that, this is how it pops up. You will have to give source and destination. I have already given source, which is my on-prem SQL server, and the lakehouse is the raw lakehouse is my destination. So if I run this, it will basically run and fetch the data from my source, which is my SQL server, and load the data into a raw lakehouse. Okay, let that run in the background while we move on to other things. Okay, so let's say you run this and you have gotten the data successfully into your raw layer. Okay, so if I go to the raw lakehouse, okay, I have gotten the data here. So if you look at raw data, I can see the employee parquet file has been came here, and now I can use this data to make some changes. Okay, now I will go back to my data flow. Okay, so data flow I will use, so I am basically just doing a little bit of changes here to kind of make you understand. But when you will working in an organization or when you are actually using Fabric, it will be a little bit more complex than that. Okay, so I will come over here, and if you will see over here data dash flow, okay, I have made some changes. So I have first selected the source, okay, and then navigation and navigated to the right data set which I want. Okay, and then I have imported Fabric, oh sorry, I am imported Parquet file over here, and then I have renamed this. Okay, so I have make some changes and renamed this. Okay, now I can publish and run over here as well, or I can use data flow inside the pipeline. Okay, so obviously you can run this right now for one time, but if let's say you want to run it again and again and again, and every single day, or maybe every 15 minutes or every 20 minutes, you can run that. Here the data destination is there. If you go to the settings, uh, let me open that. Okay, so you define the destination. So whether you want new table to be created in your silver lakehouse, everything you can define here. Okay, and you can also define the data types also. Since it's a Parquet format, it already have the data frame built in. Okay, so you can kind of see all the sources over here, but if you want to change the type, you can do that here, and you can save settings. Okay, and once the setting has been saved, it will basically choose the destination, already have the source selected. Okay, now what I will do is, if I will, let me close that. Okay, copy job is still running. So as I was telling, right, you can also monitor. So if you go to monitor, right, you can check the progress of your activity which you have run. So I can see that one data is already loaded with 1,000 rows, right, and the second is kind of loading over here. So let that run in the background. Let me go to the pipeline activity. Okay, pipeline one. Okay, so this is the data flow which we created. Okay, so this is the data flow activity, and I have integrated my data flow name, which is test data flow. Okay, so if I run this, it will basically I can also schedule it over here, kind of schedule this whichever way I want. I want to schedule it every 15 minutes. Sorry, yeah, by the minute, hourly, daily, weekly, monthly. You can do everything over here. Okay, so yeah, and if I run this, it will basically process the data and put your data into your silver layer. Okay, so data flow is here for basically putting the data into a silver layer. So let's say you have run this and you have gotten the data into a silver layer. So I have already ran this. So if I look at silver, I have two data, right, as I can see over here, which is employee silver, employee parquet silver. Now I have made six changes, as I told, like first name, the column name has changed. Okay, so now if you look at it, now I need to also put some values over here. Okay, employee silver, okay, yeah, this one. So also now I will show basically a notebook activity, how you can use like a simple kind of modification or transformation using notebook activity. Okay, so if I go back, where is my notebook activity? Yeah, notebook activity. So here in notebook activity, first I have imported the data, some libraries. Okay, so I have imported the data, that spark.sql. So this is where you can use SQL as well. So I have imported data from Lakehouse, which is Silver Lakehouse. So The first step is already done. We first copy the data into the raw layer, then we made some changes using data flow, and then using data flow we put the data into our silver lakehouse. Now we will use this notebook activity to make some further changes. Okay, so let's say you have made changes and you have just imported this. Now I will just rename this last name to also last underscore name, and what I will do is I will combine last name and department. Okay, so they have department over here and we have last name over here. I will just combine them, and I will just, if you look at them, so now we have last name, and at the end, give a second. Okay, if you look over here, let me just expand that a bit for you to kind of see. Okay, so now we are basically concatenated both the last name and department. That's, let's say, that is our requirement right now, and the business people wants it that way only. So we have created like this. Okay, now if I go down, the this I have dropped last name and department since we have combined, and this is our final data frame that we have created, right? So this is the process data that we want to put in the gold layer. So gold layer is basically where we will use that for reporting purposes. Okay, so for reporting purposes we will mostly be using warehouse. Okay, so for putting the data into warehouse, you have to see full info is there with the department and everything, which is a new column that we created. And we have, if you will see that we have removed the last name and the department. Okay, so this is the full info that we have created over here. uh, Department. Let it run. So now what we are going to do is we are going to put the data into a silver activity. Okay, sorry, silver lakehouse. So in silver lakehouse we will put the data. Okay, we have to run from the starting. Okay, so let that run. We will have to put the data into a silver layer. Okay, now from silver layer this process data needs to be moved to gold data warehouse. Okay, so for this what we are going to do is we are going to go back to our pipeline activity. Okay, and see this notebook activity is what I have integrated my notebook one over here, and that notebook activity basically takes care of further transforming the data, and that transformed data gets stored into our local sorry silver uh, lakehouse. Now copy data we can use where the source I have set it as a silver lakehouse, and we have this employee silver which we have just created using notebook activity, and we will put it into a destination which is the dbo employee gold, which is will be the gold data into a warehouse. Okay, and I have, since the data table was not created, I have created auto created table, but you can also use existing, and you can give the table names is already, I have already created this, something like that. Okay, so now if I go back, since I've already run this, at the end I will also show you and run this again. But if you go back to your gold gold warehouse, right? So here if you see, this table is already here. Okay, so now you can see that this is how, and you will see department is here where, because the spelling was wrong in the, I have also put department name, so I'll have to change that. But again you see that the last name and the department got concatenated, and you have a full info column over here. So that's how the pipelines, data flows, data warehouse, lake house, everything gets integrated. So if I go back to the pipeline, I can run this totally over here. So I can also, the copy activity which I showed, which brings the data to the raw activity, right? I can also have it here itself. And now when I run this, automatically our data will come from SQL Server to the raw lakehouse, then will automatically use data flow to go from raw to silver layer, silver lakehouse. And then we will have notable activity to further divide it up. And then in the copy activity, you can simply put the data from your silver lake house to your gold. That's how the data movement will take place, and this is very seamless. You can integrate every single thing in the pipeline, and you can run the pipeline, schedule the pipeline, it automatically picks the data. And you can also make like a changes, like in the copy activity it also have a changes, it automatically creates a table. And you also have advanced option, like if you want to use script or anything, so many things are there that you can use. Okay, and in the data flow it also have an option to kind of use both incremental. So let's say you want to not just like delete the data and replace it every single time, you have to incrementally want to put the data. So you can use in data flow kind of incrementally, you'll be able to put the data into your notebook activity. So if you run it daily, it will only put the data which has new to the databases. Okay, so let's see. No, let's see the monitor. Let's see where it's at. Still running. Take some time since we are on free tenant. Uh, so it'll take some time. Anyway, so if I go back to the warehouse, gold warehouse, right? Let's say if I delete the table, right? If I delete the data in the table, right? So this table, now it should be empty. Yes. And if I go back and run the pipeline now, let me see destination. Yeah. If I run it now, so let it run. In the meanwhile, I will also show you some of the components over here. So you can see there are so many components. You can go to my workspaces and you can see all your workspaces over here, whichever workspaces that you have created. So you can have like a dev workspace, then you will also have like a production workspace. You can put it like that, okay? And then you have a monitor tab over here. Then we have real time workloads, and you can also use browse to kind of browse the lake house that you have created. Okay, so lake house, everything would be put over here, and demo workspace will be here. You can also, you go to lake house also, one lake catalog, right? So you can see and kind of navigate everything from here as well. And for lakehouse, if you want to look at, there's an application, one lake application, that you can download, and with one lake you can integrate to your Windows account only here. So now with your just your Windows Explorer, you can come over here, put any data. So you can copy the data as well as put any data over here, and you'll be able to see it in your Fabric workspace over there. Okay, if you look at lakehouse. Okay, so going back to the monitor, we'll start. Right, so if I look at the pipeline, yeah, see the data flow activity has completed. Now it will just run the notebook activity, and once the notebook activity is complete, then it will copy the data. So as I've already deleted the data, once that will get completed, you will be able to see the data in your gold warehouse. So let's go to monitor. Let's see. That is that. You can also, like in the monitor, you can run, check the notebook activity over here, what has completed, right? And you'll be able to see over here it's running. So give it some time. It takes some time. Let's take it from pipeline only. Okay. So notebook activity is succeeded. That is good for us. Now it will just refresh the data into our gold layer. Okay, so this is going to just take a second. Bear with me. In the meanwhile, I will just show you. So this is one of the certification that you can use, which is DP600. So if you want to get started with data engineering with Fabric, then you can use DP600, which is like a certification, starting certification for you to kind of start it. And once you have done this, then you can go to DP700, which is like a data engineering certification, which is going to be much deeper into data engineering. Okay, so let's go back. Let's see. Okay, this is completed. Let's go back to your cold warehouse. Okay, yeah. So tables has already been created since I've emptied the data. Now see, the data has come again, right? So this is how it works, right? So you run this data and you'll be able to kind of see everything over here. So that is the way you'll be able to seamlessly integrate the data from multiple different data sources using Fabric. So that's it from my side. I hope you have understood Fabric with my general idea about, say, different components in Fabric. I hope you have gotten a good understanding. I'll, you know, ask you to kind of go and read over the internet or over different components, and you can create a basically like a storage trial account in Fabric. So if you will log into the Fabric, you'll be able to create a trial account, and once you have that trial account, you'll be able to kind of play around in whatever I have created, so you can do the same in Fabric. And once you have that, you'll be able to understand it further, because in theory everything sounds okay, this is how it works, this is going to be working like this, okay. But once you are going to integrate it in actually in Fabric environment, or you are going to do some demo, so that way it will give you much more clarity on how everything works, okay. So this is how the Fabric tech stacks or the components look like if you want to use it for data engineering. Again, as I said, like it goes deeper as well. So first understanding those components and kind of using it in just a simple fashion, that will give you some clarity. But then again, if you want to dig deeper, you'll be able to do so once you have completed this, at least this kind of understanding, right? And for real time, as I said, there will be a session coming on soon, so stay tuned for that. So that's it from me, Sudhanshu. Going back to you.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir, for your insightful session. And thanks to all the attendees and the viewers who joined us for this exciting session under the Microsoft Fabric cohort. Now, we'll see you next week again for an engaging and insightful journey which continues into the world of Microsoft Fabric. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Satyam, sir, for your time.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sudhanshu. Have a nice day, everybody. Bye bye.